going to take us back to the beginning. The reason why we wanted to have you on, Sam,
Uh-oh.
apart from enjoying your astrology and your YouTube channel and your keynotes at various conferences, is the particular allure of your ideas around the astrological mafia.
The Zodiac Mafia.
The Zodiac Mafia, thank you. And I went back and looked at the video, and I'm curious to hear your current iteration of that. And then you and I, we talked about different things before we aired. The one that I wanted to touch on was Lilith. And I think there's something else, and it always emerges from the discussion. We look forward to having this conversation with you.
Well, cool. We can start with the Zodiac Mafia. I do want to let your viewers, if they're subscribers to the Mountain Astrologer, I have an article in there, which I think I'm at liberty to share. So maybe I can send you guys a PDF because it's been over a year, because they have a limit, like after 6 months or something like that, then you can do it. So the Zodiac Mafia, just to kind of introduce it, is the idea that there are 3 signs that people often underestimate or don't take seriously. And there really are 2. One, I don't think people underestimate as much. The 2 are Pisces and Libra, and the third one is Capricorn. So in order, it would be Libra as the Don of the Zodiac Mafia, which I'll explain what a Don is. And then the Capo is Capricorn of the Zodiac Mafia. And then Pisces is the consigliere of the Zodiac Mafia. And how this emerged, I used to be a lot more on Twitter. And when I say a lot more on Twitter, between sessions, talking to, I had a Skype wife, someone I would talk to on Skype all the time, and just writing, because I used to write a lot for Ebony magazine. I would spend 6 to 8 hours on Twitter off and on, right? A lot of time. And most of it was kind of a range of different things depending on the day, either a debate or just kind of lollygagging. I was part of Black Twitter, and Black Twitter loves to clown things and have jokes. And I would see people talk about Libra, particularly in terms that didn't make sense to me as someone who grew up with a father who had a moon in Libra and was an Aquarian sun, and a mother who was a double Libra, sun and moon in Libra. And they would often talk about Libra as, just empty-headed, wanting to be liked, likable, maybe even sometimes passive people. And I'm like, I don't know who they're talking about, because this is not my experience of Libra, both as an astrologer and even growing up. The other thing to know, because you've probably been wondering this, Lillian, my father was involved with the mafia. So I had some, I won't say firsthand, but secondhand knowledge of the mafia. Like, well, how was your father involved with the mafia? Well, make a complicated story simpler. My father thought he was half Italian, and he looks half Italian, but he wasn't. I don't, as far as I know, and then according to one of my aunts, doesn't make sense that he would be. He didn't know his father, to be honest. He knew his mom, but he didn't know his father. So he got involved in organized crime very early in his life because his mom brought him in. His mom was also active in organized crime. So organized crime in the mid-20th century, when he was involved in the United States and in Buffalo, New York, where I grew up, mainly meant the Italian mafia. And a lot of people have their conceptions of the mafia. I would say some of it misconceptions. I mean, is crime involved? Absolutely. But there's different levels of crime, right? And so I kind of was joking on Twitter I was like, well, Libras are the dawn of the Zodiac Mafia. And then on the fly, I was like, well, the capo would be the captain, would be Capricorn. The Don, by the way, is the head. Okay. The head of the family. Right. The capo is the enforcer slash captain. And the consigliere is the counselor, usually the lawyer, someone who is involved, but rarely gets their hands dirty in that sense. And from that, I kind of gave a picture of especially Libra and Pisces that is very different than how we usually see it. And with Libra, people always want to say Libra is about balancing the scales.
Right.
And I don't think Libra is about balance at all. I think it's about ratio, proportion, getting the right proportion between things. Mm-hmm. And what I would say with Libra being involved or being the Don of the Zodiac Mafia is that they're trying to get the right proportion. And so we could say they're riding the scales, having going for their sense of justice as a sign. And I'm going to say something that ties all three of them together in a minute. So because they're an air sign, they actually can have the rationality, the cool rationality, to figure out how I'm going to get you and be patient. And one example I used, and this is, God, the Zodiac Mafia has been around for at least, okay, it's 2024. I want to say at least 2010 or 2011. And so the prime example I would use was Putin. I was like, and I had been watching Putin for a long time, pretty much from 2000. And it was like, you watch that guy plays the long game, and he's going to finish you when he decides to finish you. And I mean, I'm not applauding this, but he hasn't been a disappointment. That's all been true. And then as another example I would give is Hitler, who was a Libra rising, Taurus sun. And then there's Margaret Thatcher. And then the thing I knew about my father and my mom is that they also, as an air sign, could get mental. I was a very mischievous Moon and Leo Scorpio sun child. And I used to poke at my mom. And I remember, trying to spook her. And one time I did, I put a spider under her pillow that I knew, on her pillow, under her cover, that I knew that would be the first thing that she would see. And I knew she was scared of spiders. But I never forgot this time when I was teasing her about, scaring her. And she got real serious, and she looked at me. She says, "Why are you trying to scare me?" And I'm like, I don't know, because you're fine. It's fine, blah, blah, blah. She's like, "Oh, okay. Well, you don't know what I do at night, do you?" Right? I'm like, "No, I could, for all you know, I could go out and look like those people from the Omega Man that scare you so much."
Oh, no.
I mean, she was a master, like, what I guess prompted, she could get back in my head. And I was like, okay. And that's what I've seen with Libras. An example, going back to Putin as an example, is that, he knew that when Angela Merkel was chancellor of Germany, he knew she was scared of dogs. So what does he do? He has her over, and then he calls in his dogs at one particular point to kind of just, pet them, and even say to her, like, well, do you want to pet them? But it was for control. Yeah. It was to mess with her. Yeah. And that's the darker side of Libra. So I was kind of, and I'm not saying that all Libra suns, moons, risings are like this as a qualifier, but I was emphasizing the darker aspect of Libra that people seem to ignore or don't take stock of. Right. With Capricorn, most people would think Capricorn is capable of revenge. The example I like to use is Nixon, the sun in Capricorn, where a lot of people don't know Nixon had a like basically a hit list You know, he even had Paul Newman on it. Different people who he decided not that he was going to take out, you know, have them assassinated, but destroy.
Yeah.
And that's what he would do.
Yeah.
Until they caught up with him. And that's
Right.
why he, you know,
Well,
he
of
had
course,
his
and
fall.
he had the Southern strategy too.
Mhm.
So it was his PR folks, but they were the architects of that and quite
Mhm.
proud of where they stopped being blatantly racist and started using code words like urban,
Mhm.
middle
The war on
class,
drugs.
the war on drugs. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because Capricorn's an architect in the sense of Saturn, right? And so when I talked about justice with Libra, with Capricorn, it's going to become revenge as a way of righting it a wrong because you have wronged them or wronged something that is important to them. And so they will follow through and they have the stamina match with the dryness, the rationality to follow through with their plans. They play the long game. And the surprise is always Pisces, like sweet, almost like drug-addled, martyred Pisces, you know, how do they fit into the Zodiac Mafia? Well, as children of Jupiter, they're thinking on how to teach you a lesson. They can see themselves as agents of karma. And what's interesting, and I learned this playing, I used to play live action role playing. And one time I played this game um, with a Pisces who was a villain, and he was masterful at not only getting his way, but also in terms of basically destroying folks, you know, in terms of having them reveal their weaknesses and then get killed, I mean, in the game. And I asked him, how did you do that? And he said, well, I pretty much, you know, since I know most of the players, I knew like what hurts them or what, you know, even though we're playing characters, what made them tick as human beings. And I was like, oh, that's the dark side of Pisces. And empathy, we always think of empathy as a good thing, and I think it mostly is a good thing. But you can use powers of empathy to know what hurts someone. And so Pisces can use those powers of empathy to get under people's skin if they feel like they have to teach you a lesson, become agents of karma in order to get their way. And that's the darker side of it. And so I picked those three, even though I could have picked others, as who will follow through. Now, I don't think if we're just talking signs, and I recognize I'm talking signology, right? So you know, this is not me saying this fits everyone, and you know, blah. And some people do take it personally. I'm like, don't. You know, if we're going to talk about signs as we do in popular culture, and it's all for jokes and fun. This is along that line, but it has some instruction to it. So